The final nutrition tool we will be discussing this week is the food label. So food labels have been around since 1990 when the Nutrition and Labeling Act required that all packaged food be labeled. Food labels inform consumers about nutrients and ingredients found in the food, and no major changes have been made to the food label over the last 20 years. Trans fat was required to be added, but that's the only change really that's been made over the last 20 years. However, there is a makeover in progress, so we'll discuss what the food labels look like now. So food labels are required to state certain things. So every food label, for the most part, there are a few exceptions, but more often than not, food labels will have this information. So the common or usual name of the product is required, the manufacturer, the packer, or distributor contact information. So if there was an allergy or there was some question about a product, you would be able to contact the appropriate person. The net contents that are in the product, nutrition content, so this is going to be the nutrition facts panel. The ingredients, these are listed in descending order by weight, and then any sort of essential warning. So this is really important for people that have some sort of food allergy. So things like if they have a dairy allergy or an egg allergy or a nut allergy or a gluten allergy, anything like that will have to be required on the food label. So let's look more at the nutrition facts panel. The nutrition facts panel includes the following information: the serving size, and it provides this in common measures to allow for comparison. So it usually provides in a weight amount like grams or milligrams or maybe even ounces or pounds, but it will also provide something in a cup measurement. Will tell you the number of servings per container. So this is really important to note that most of the time we consume more than one serving per setting. So the total number of servings per container are included. So then we have our calories and calories from fat. So this is per serving as well. So if we were to eat multiple servings, we would need to make sure that we're accounting for all of those calories. So if there are 20 calories in one serving and we had 3 servings, we would take 20 times 3 and know that we had 60 calories. The nutrient amounts and percentages of daily values for total fat, cholesterol, sodium, total carbohydrate, and protein are required. And then certain vitamins and minerals. So vitamin A, vitamin C, calcium, and iron are all included on the food label. Sometimes you'll see other vitamins and minerals included, especially on things like cereal, and that's fine. Other products may do that as well, but the ones that are required are A, C, calcium, and iron. So let's go through a label and look at all of these things again. So the serving size, starting at the top, tells you the amount of food in one serving, again, cups, pieces, ounces, grams, and then the total number of servings per package. So this is a serving size of 1 cup, but the servings per container is 2, meaning there are 2 cups total in this product. Next, we look at all of our nutrients. So this includes information on the amount per serving of fat, cholesterol, and sodium. So these are highlighted in yellow because these are those components that we want to reduce in our diet. So think back to the previous segment. So we want to reduce or limit the amount of total fat, cholesterol, and sodium in our diet. However, we want to increase things like dietary fiber, vitamins A, C, calcium, and iron. Then we have our percent daily values. To be honest, the daily values are not super useful for anything other than comparing products. So this can help us determine if a food is high or low in a nutrient, but these are based on a 2,000 or 2,500 calorie diet. So unless that's your calorie limit or your calorie recommendation, these are not exactly useful for you other than helping you to compare 2 products to determine if one is high or low in a nutrient. Here's another representation going through again. So serving size represents how much of the product consumers typically eat, and this is based on survey data. We want to limit total fat to less than 45 grams per day and limit saturated fat to less than 5 grams per day. So if we had multiple foods, we would, know that 45 minus 12, that's how much more fat we have to consume throughout the day. Saturated fat, we would only be able to consume 2 more grams. Consume 20 to 35 grams of fiber each day, and limit sugar to less than 10% of total energy intake. So one thing about sugar is that sugars are included in carbohydrates, and we'll talk more about carbohydrates in a couple of weeks. But this is all sugars and doesn't necessarily distinguish between added sugars and naturally occurring sugars. A little bit more about the daily values. Again, these are applying to the average person who is eating 2,000 to 2,500 calories a day, which is what most of our recommendations are based on. But not everybody needs that much, and some people may need more. So again, just use this as a rough guideline and to compare, make comparisons among foods and not for necessarily your own nutrient intake goals. These are several different food label formats, but notice that they all contain the required information. This one over here goes into a little bit more detail of the different kinds of fat, but again, only total fat and saturated fat are required. This one we can see part of the ingredient list, but this would be elsewhere on both of these labels. So different formats that are approved. Looking at the ingredients list, again, these are listed by descending order of weight. For things like when you're looking at breads, and we want to choose whole grain breads, you want to look for whole grain to be the first ingredient or fairly high on the ingredient list. If you see something like enriched, that doesn't imply whole grain. Also look for things like sugars, hidden sugars. And sugar may not be listed as sugar. It may be listed as corn syrup or something else like that. So this can just help you know what ingredients are found in a product and what the contribution of each of these ingredients is. Some other label buzzwords to help you when you're looking and comparing different foods. I mentioned that you can use the percent daily value to tell you if a food is high or low in a nutrient. So if something has less than 5% of the daily value, that's a poor source. 10 to 19% would be a good source, and an excellent source would be more than 20% of the daily value. So orange juice would definitely have more than 20% DV for vitamin C. So that would be an excellent source of vitamin C. So if a product says it's an excellent source of fiber or an excellent source of calcium, check the label and look at these DVs and see if that is actually correct. If something is low fat, that means it has to have less than 3 grams of fat per serving, and fat-free means less than a half a gram per serving. So just because something says fat-free or sodium-free or trans fat-free, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have any in it. It can have up to a half a gram per serving of fat to still be considered fat-free. So if you ate a lot of servings, this could add up over time. So that's just something to be aware of, that labels can be a little bit tricky. Low sodium is less than 140 milligrams per serving, and again, sodium free is less than 5 milligrams. So just because it's free doesn't mean it doesn't have anything. Low calorie would be something with less than 40 calories per serving, and high fiber would have more than 5 grams of fiber per serving, because with fiber it doesn't have the percent DV on there, so you would just look at grams, and more than 5 would be considered high fiber. Food labels may also include something in regard to a health claim. So there are nutrient claims, health claims, and structure function claims. You can read more about these in your textbook, but this is just some things you should look for. So like the nutrient claim. So this one is the 50% less sodium. So another nutrient claim would be something like excellent source of vitamin C. A health claim has some scientific evidence to back it up. So these are usually pretty grounded in science. They have to be approved. So for oatmeal, oatmeal can help reduce cholesterol. Cheerios make health claims. So check out the foods in your house and see what other kind of health claims you can find. Structure function claims have not been evaluated by the FDA, so you want to be a little bit more cautious of these. With your food label reading assignment for the week, I do want you to look at the products that you choose and see if they have a health claim and make sure you include that in your assignment. Sometimes the claims that foods make, you're like, oh, that's kind of weird. I don't believe this. So check those out, see what you find, and I'll be interested to see your findings. So let's talk about the food label getting a makeover. So again, this is the first time in really 20 years that anything is being changed. This is currently under review or in the comment period, but the new label will put a bigger emphasis on total calories, added sugars, and certain nutrients like vitamin D and potassium. And thinking back to our dietary guidelines lesson, vitamin D and potassium were both identified as nutrients of concern. So here we can see the proposed changes. This is also found in the resources for the week, along with a website link with more information about these proposed changes. So if you compare this proposed label with an old label, you can see the serving size is larger and it's a bolder type, and the serving sizes will also be updated. Calories will also be in larger type or larger font. And again, this is putting that bigger emphasis on calories. So right away you see the daily values are going to be flipped to be on the left side instead of the right side, so that you see those first, and this will make comparison among different foods easier as well. I mentioned before that the sugars did not distinguish between naturally occurring and added sugars, so the new labels will include a separate line for added sugars. Not to say that added sugars are any worse than naturally occurring sugars, but added sugars are going to provide empty calories. And we'll talk more about sugars in a couple of weeks when we talk about carbohydrates. But added sugars tend to add empty calories, so again, they're providing a lot of energy or calories without providing any nutrients. Vitamin C and vitamin A are no longer going to be required in these nutrients. So originally those two were included because of the deficiency prevalence in the United States. Very few people in the United States have vitamin A and vitamin C deficiency anymore, so those have been removed, and instead we're focusing on these nutrients of concern. So remember, these are vitamin D, calcium, potassium, the other one was fiber. And a lot of people still have iron deficiency or are not consuming adequate amounts of iron, so that one is still included. The other change with these nutrients is that the actual amounts are going to be included instead of just a percentage. The new footnote to come is going to hopefully explain the daily values a little bit better and how they can be used for the general consumer. So take a look at the food label activity. Let me know if you have questions, and I'm excited to hear what you learn. Have a great week.